Friends, Romans, countrymen.
Welcome to the Paul N Saul Show.
Quick rundown, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
First things first, charter amendments on the ballot in Niceville coming up here in the next couple of weeks. You're going to have to vote on it. We'll explain why, what's going on.
Yeah.
Shree Martin, formerly of STEM, is out of the Okaloosa County School District. We'll go from there into some state news. Governor Ron DeSantis, has announced his intention to remove property tax.
Or at least significantly less.
Or at least significantly lessen it.
I can't wait to talk about that.
And that's going to be an interesting one. I think we're going to have a good talk on that one. Speaking of Governor DeSantis, a little late-breaking news for you on this Monday evening as we're recording. He has announced that he is going to start his own Doge.
Yeah. Doge at the state level.
Well, Doge, there's got to be a better acronym. They have EO Doge.
Please tell me he's not going to go that route.
I just think that
with the name.
If you're going to take an acronym, we'll get into it.
Yeah,
Anyway, and then finally, we're talking about the potential effects that I am looking into for a story possibly later this week, early next week, about the federal Doge implementation and what it could mean here locally in terms of our local economics, not necessarily the base and the employees themselves, but the follow-on effects that we might be feeling here, depending on how big this thing is. But before we get into that, Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing better than I deserve. Thanks for asking. And I realize I'm wearing a hat, which is sort of rare for the show, but maybe it's like new shtick that we should start. Like, if you send me your corporate hat, I will wear it on the show. And today I'm repping Salt and Light Realty.
That's exactly right. And I'm repping absolutely nothing. So if you want to see some...
But we are sitting in the...
Oh, yeah. Why do I always forget?
I don't know. I'll prompt you.
In the Movement Mortgage Studios here at Steve Shutt's Movement Mortgage office. You know what we need? We need like a Movement Mortgage plaque back.
Or something. We'll figure it out. But we'll keep shouting them out too.
You get the idea. Long story first, so let's get into it. First things first, charter amendments. Paul, why don't you kind of run us down these two?
Sure. So, we get to vote in Niceville if you're a Niceville city resident. Just because you have a Niceville address doesn't mean you're a Niceville city resident. So you have to be a Niceville city resident to vote. We're usually voting for city council members in charter amendment updates, but we don't have any openings on our city council right now. And so we don't have any people to vote for. So instead, all we have to vote for on March 11th is charter amendments. And the two charter amendments have surfaced on the Facebook world and have spewed many of argument. Which is sort of pointless. I feel like the people who came out were like, the people who are angry are people who just don't trust government to begin with. But literally these two charter amendments couldn't make more sense. I'm pretty certain both you and I agree that they should both pass.
Yeah, so we can go one by one. So let's do the first ones first. So the first thing first is there is a charter amendment on the table. March 8th, you can also vote early and vote by mail. 174 people as of this morning have voted by mail across the county for all of their elections. But the first one is about the city clerk position. So currently, according to city charter, which is like the city law book, rule book, you have to live in the city limits of Niceville in order to be clerk. And while that was fine for the first 80 years of existence, we're having a kind of a come to Jesus moment where we have a deputy clerk who has been with the city for...
And awesome.
Yeah, and awesome. And has been there for the better part of 35, 40 years. She's a master municipal clerk. She has all the credentialing. Only thing is, she lives in Crestview.
Because guess what? It's cheaper there.
Yes. And so in order for her to take a position as clerk, she would either need to move to Niceville or we would have to pass this amendment. But
I also don't want to make it seem like it's just for her. It just sort of seems silly. Not every single person who works in city government needs to work for or live in the actual city, right? Like this goes all the way down to, the people who are working in landscaping or helping, clear out the water main issues or sewer issues.
Worst everybody who worked for the city government that made $19 an hour.
We just wouldn't have employees. We wouldn't have any employees.
Well, yeah, nothing would get done. The sewers would overflow.
Yeah.
It would be a mess.
So I think this one is just straight up vote yes, because, in the future, we're also going to want really good candidates, and they don't necessarily need to be living in Niceville.
Candidates for city clerk.
Yeah.
For city council, please live in the city.
Yes, city council, if you're voting on important things like that, yes, you should live. But like employees, who just have administrative like roles or physical roles, they shouldn't have to live here.
Currently, the only other city employee that has to live here in Niceville,
the city manager, which makes sense too.
So moving on, second thing on the ballot today.
Yeah, we had an incident a couple years ago where the city council had a opening, and the process for that was to have people apply, and then they voted, and then there was a tie. And what did the rules say to do? Let's flip a coin to decide who should win the tie.
That's in a legal document, by the way.
It just seems ridiculous to go through this super formal process to have everything come down to a coin toss. So this charter amendment changes that and allows the mayor to be the tie-breaking vote. And 100% that should be, I think, passed as well. If you live in the city like I do and you get to vote like I do, just vote yes on both of these things and let's move on.
And point of order on the coin flip thing. Doug Stauffer, the beneficiary of the coin flip, the guy that won it, as well as the incoming city councilman who lost that coin flip, Doug Tolbert, two Dougs, different people. Both are very in favor of this decision-making process and hope that it passes. I've talked to both of them about it, and they're very, very open about the fact that they think it's ridiculous that there was a coin flip in the first place.
Yeah, sort of embarrassing, actually. So I'm hoping that everyone votes yes on these two things. Don't let the Facebook trolls fool you and think that government's trying to trick you into something. Just vote yes on both of those.
And if you want to read more about them, we have stuff on our website as well. All the details, hyperlinks. If you don't trust us, I don't know why you're watching this and not trusting us, but okay. Anyway, you can find them there. So next up is a kind of more difficult story. You may have heard of Principal Shree Martin. She was the principal at STEM school. That's the middle school for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and there's another M because it's two M's. I don't remember what the other M is.
I took a drink of water so that I didn't have to answer.
Dadgummit. Anyway, there's another. Sorry. I don't know what it is because I am a liberal arts graduate. And so Dr. Martin was there for 4 or 5 years and had a whole host of issues. And
Allegedly.
Well, some of them have been substantiated, but the issues there remain that she had some thrash, both with students, parents, and teachers that ended up getting her moved from STEM to DJJ. That's the Department of Juvenile Justice facility that Oak County School District oversees. And from there, she was given notice that she would be terminated at the December 9th school board meeting. At that point, she resigned and was given a resignation with prejudice decision that doesn't allow her to be rehired here in the Okaloosa County School District.
But it does allow her to apply for other jobs elsewhere and say she never was fired.
Yes. So a caveat to that, I did the extra because I thought the same thing. I was like, so this person could pretty much just go anywhere. I was like, what's the process to make sure that like people know, hey, this is what's up? Asked the school district that question. They told me that they have it in their coding specifically for that reason so that she won't be rehired here. But also when somebody, let's say that Hudson County,
or even Walton next door,
the school district says, "Oh, hey, we got this person. Let's call their prior employment." Then Okaloosa County School District can say, "Yeah, she resigned. She resigned with prejudice, which means that we were going to terminate her." So it's on the permanent record, but it's not on the permanent record.
Does it affect the difference between resigning with prejudice and getting fired? Does it change your?
Doesn't do anything with the state. So her teacher certification is not affected by the way that this went down at the county.
How about her retirement or anything like that?
Nothing like that as well. It's purely administrative from the school district's perspective.
Not necessarily the ending I think some people wanted, and I think it took a lot longer than a lot of people wanted. There's definitely a lot of folks who believe this stuff was going on for a long time and they were reporting it and not seeing any action. Mm-hmm. But I will say, the person who replaced her, I have a strong affinity for. And that's Mrs. Nihale Taylor.
Tell us about her. I mean, you had her for, I say art?
I actually don't remember. It might have been art. But Miss Nihale Taylor, a longtime teacher and administrator at Niceville High School. She's been fabulous. She's probably deserved her own school for a long time. And so to see her take over STEM, I think is amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the good things she continues to do. Yeah.
Moving on, we're going to some state news that affects us locally.
Yes.
This is, I think, really going to be in your wheelhouse because of how much you deal with property.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis announced that he wants to significantly reduce property taxes as a way of generating revenue for local and state governments, really local governments. That's who gets most of the property tax. So tell us a little bit more about what's going on here and what we could possibly expect.
Yeah, I don't know that, I think it's going to be fantastic for homeowners. I think it's going to be fantastic for bringing more people to the state of Florida, which also could drive up demand. A lot of people move here because there's no state income tax, period. Now, if you say, hey, by the way, there's no state income tax and there's little to no property tax, like people are going to be rushing here from outside the state to purchase real estate and to live here. But what you do have to do is figure out how you're going to fill the gap for local governments to be able to survive. We don't want their budgets significantly cut and services degraded. So I would guess that this will shift more to some sort of sales tax.
It would have to. So
I would think.
The long and the short of it, just from my public administration stuff, is that you're going to have to backfill it with something.
Yeah.
So in 2007, we had the financial crisis, and a lot of people stopped spending money in Florida. The property values that were assessed remained the same, and so those stayed relatively stable. But because the state relied so heavily on corporate and sales taxes in the past, we saw a huge cut in the state government that took us a long time to recover. So it's a good idea as long as there's revenues flowing in from sales taxes.
Right.
The second that we have a hiccup in the economic engine, we can see that and feel that effect for a long term. So I am a little bit cooler on this.
And it might be more of a drastic swing, is I guess maybe what you're saying,
yes,
right? Like
it's not stable.
Property taxes are relatively stable, help you build out a really strong foundation for budgets. But if you have these huge pendulum swings due to economic, outside economic forces, coming up $1 million, $2 or $1 million or $2 short in a city government for Niceville would be pretty painful.
Yes. And so that's my main concern with it, is that if we do it, we're going to have to get it from somewhere else. And that somewhere else is probably going to be a less stable revenue stream.
Yeah. But the reason I also like it though is like now the tourists sharing it too.
Yes, and that is a valid point, right? Is that the tourists are going to be paying more of it. Again, the only caveat that I would add is that it is less stable, and for us to not have a bedrock of base revenues could really hurt us, especially when it's as irrevocable as putting it at the state level versus the county level.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said. My biggest concern is the lack of stability in other revenue generating models, but that doesn't mean that you're wrong too, right? Like the fact that you can have tourists pay for something is always a help, especially when it's not on the end user, right?
Sure. So like there's going to be lots of modeling that's done. What percentage of sales tax needs to increase? What does that look like? Can we build stable savings so that we can weather those storms that you're concerned about? Can we build our budgets in conservative manners where we don't take the worst case scenario into effect? I think it's a big splash announcement. I think it's going to get a lot of people excited.
We're talking about it.
Yeah. But, now your eggs will go from $11 to $12.
We'll see. But the other thing I'd add is that we don't have like you said, we don't have a state income tax, and that is state income tax is a gold standard in stabilized revenue, because even when people are losing jobs, you have that plus property taxes spread across. It makes it easier to cover.
Texas has been a hot place for people to move, but the one big complaint about Texas is really significant property taxes. So yeah. Well, hopefully if the property taxes go away, they don't try to shift those costs to insurance costs and
I just want to be very clear. I am all for optimized taxing and the least amount that we have to pay possible.
Yeah.
That is my very big concern about ending property taxes, is there won't be local revenues to cover the things that we need. And we're already a very low tax state. We're one of the lowest taxed states in the union per capita. So
that's why I'm here.
I mean, hey.
That's why I moved back, partly because I lived in Northern Virginia and
do they have like a couple of taxes?
They have like a lot of taxes.
I believe they have all of the taxes.
They have all of them.
And so,
in fact, you buy a car there, you pay tax on it, right? When you buy the car, just like here, except every year they expect you to pay personal property tax on the car that you already bought.
So I would need to have a Mitsubishi Lancer from 1995 is what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you had anything newer, they were just going to ask for, a couple $1,000 a year.
Pay me my money.
I moved away from the People's Republic of Virginia.
People's Commonwealth first. All right, get it right.
I'm just so glad to be back here.
Anyway, DeSantis has also done some breaking news, and I should probably put like a breaking news graphic up here as we talk about this.
Sure.
But he has announced his own Doge.
Doge.
I want to say doggy, but it's called the EO Doge, and the idea is basically the same. I was reading over the announcement that came in my inbox maybe 15 minutes before we started talking.
Yeah.
Same idea, government efficiency, looking for cuts.
Hey, Ron, if you need an Elon, I'm available. Isolate that.
I got you, dog. I'll clip it. And so everything that means, they're putting together, I guess, a team. They weren't really specific in the press release about who's going to be on the team or what that team is going to be made of.
I'm waiting for my phone to ring. Just joking.
But it'll apparently look at every division and department of government in Tallahassee and around. It did make mention of other government units, maybe county, city, stuff like that. Don't know how that would work, but I guess we'll see. I mean, cities and counties get their charters from the state government, so the state has the right to check them out. Federal Doge has
federal Doge has hit the area.
Into the hearts and minds of most people we know and love. There have been several announcements and It's kind of convoluted, so forgive me if I get one or two wrong. You'll have to correct me. The first kind of phase was cull everybody that is probationary because they're easy to get rid of, more or less, not because of performance or something like that.
Right.
And then there's a second kind of phase that has been like, we're going to cut certain divisions or sub-departments as well. And news came out from the Department of Defense, which is kind of pushing back on Doge, that they're also looking at this, but they're taking it under their own kind of like, we don't answer to you, this is our fiefdom kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're looking at culling between 5 and 8% of the total Department of Defense workforce. What that looks like exactly, I don't know, but they're saying it'll be about 61,000 jobs. I'm working on a story that's not anywhere close to done yet, and it's going to probably take the rest of the week to get all the information in.
I think it's going to be hard to get it down to hyper-local on how it will affect us.
That's the thing, right? Is, for example, remote workers. I have no idea how many remote workers are affected by this, right? Because that's part of this whole thing. I don't know of the, for example, Probert gave me their fact sheet. They have, I want to say 1,800 civilian employees, like GS employees. How many of them are probationary? I don't know. How many of them are going to be in the Division of Applied Sciences for neurotransmitter links that they're cutting? I don't know. But my goal is to figure out how many base level, how many probationary employees there are generally in the area, and then how many of them are losing their jobs, and what kind of economic impact that could have. You know, and
yeah, I mean, I always think about it from a real estate perspective, because that seemingly would be where things show themselves. We have pretty high inventory right now, and so any cuts or people moving out of the area suddenly wouldn't help that issue.
So
Worse.
When you say high inventory for laymen,
we have a lot of houses on the market compared to other geographic areas. I mean, the market isn't decreasing significantly by any means, but we definitely have more time on market because the inventory is higher. Although I've heard some of my realtor friends, they say it's funky inventory, meaning like it's not super high quality, meaning it's kind of like weird and dated stuff.
Janky 50s ranch houses.
Yeah. But that the stuff that's really nice is selling. So yeah, I think this, we'll see how it plays out. You know, hopefully you get us more data with the story to see how this might affect our local economy and our local community. And hopefully we don't have a lot of people moving out.
Yes. And that's ultimately my concern, is because something approaching 70 cents out of every dollar that is earned here in Okaloosa County as a whole, not just Niceville, has something to do with the base. And so if the base gets affected negatively by something,
Sure,
then it's very likely that it would cause something significant to happen throughout the entire economy. What that's going to look like with this specific thing, I don't know. Ultimately, do you think that we're going to see a 5 to 8% decrease in federal employees in the DoD or all these other places? Or is this kind of like it gets hung up in the courts and then eventually they decide not to fight it, or however that stuff plays?
No, I mean, I don't know that the courts are really going to be able to do what they say they're going to do, because it seems like one judge will say, you can't do that, and then the next judge will override it or on appeal or something. I don't know. I'm a personal proponent of the government getting smaller, but I am seeing it how it's affecting a lot of my friends and family, and so I know that it's potentially pretty ugly and challenging. And so, you know, I offer a lot of thoughts and prayers for those folks, and I continue to talk to my friends who are impacted. But yeah, I think it's just a wait and see. Like, we're honestly just going to have to see how it plays out.
I'm convinced this sounds, I'm not trying to be dramatic, that's not, but I think that there is more of this to come based on what I've read from the press releases and the statements. Like, this is not like, hey, we're going to cut these and be done. It sounds like this is going to be continuous, at least for the first year of the administration. It sounds like they're slashing.
Well, I mean, you shouldn't always be cutting, but you should always be looking for efficiencies.
Just like working out, huh?
I guess so. But like,
you got to bulk up.
But I guess like people think Doge is just a cutting agency, which right now it appears that's what it's doing. But at some point it could shift to just be driving more efficiencies, and driving more efficiencies doesn't necessarily mean a smaller workforce every time.
Right on.
So.
All right, that's what we got for today, guys. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or angry screeds, we love them. We take them. They boost engagement and make us look better to the algorithm. So we'd love to have them from you. Put them in the comments.
Oh, I should say more angry things then.
Yeah, no, that's why you have to bait people, obviously. Okay. We can't just be like, sharing our realistic thoughts. We just have to bait people consistently.
All right, family. Be nice, Niceville.
Man the herd, you.
See ya.